When we're young, we often believe that waiting is proof of love. That if someone doesn't return, all we need to do is stay long enough. Stand still long enough. Hold on long enough. But as we grow older, we begin to understand something else entirely. Some people, from the very moment they leave, never had any intention of coming back. Tonight, I'd like to share a story with you. A letter never sent. Written for someone I once waited for a very, very long time. And at last, I learned how to let them go. The rain is falling outside tonight, softly, gently. The piano hums quietly in this calm space between us. If you've ever waited, endlessly, quietly, for someone who never turned around, then perhaps you'll understand. Let this story guide you through these long, quiet hours of the night. From the ache of being left behind, to the calm that comes from knowing. Not everyone who passes through our lives was ever meant to stay. Not everyone is meant to be waited for forever. Please come along. I'll tell you this story slowly, gently. One breath at a time. I still remember that day so clearly. A rainy afternoon, quiet and gray. Just like so many others from those distant years. Not because anything extraordinary happened, but because it was on that soft, silent day I finally understood no one was ever coming back. Not for me. Not anymore. There was a chair by the window in the small room where I lived back then. It wasn't special. Just an old wooden chair, painted white, its paint peeling gently with time. But it was where I had spent so many hours waiting. Waiting for a message, a phone call, some small sign that I still mattered to someone out there. That day, the rain fell steadily, not harshly, not too softly, just enough to blur the streets outside into watercolor, just enough to make it hard to tell whether the droplets on the glass came from the sky or from my own heart overflowing. Again, I used to live on hope. Small, fragile hope, but I carried it like a habit. Perhaps someone once told me, the one who waits is the one who truly loves. So I never thought I was wrong for holding on, even when the road ahead had long grown cold. But that day, as I sat watching the rain drip slowly down the glass, I quietly asked myself a question. A question that seemed so small, so soft, like the rain falling outside. What am I still waiting for? Such a quiet question. And yet, it silenced me more deeply than I expected. I realized, in all those days and months and years of waiting, no one had ever asked me to. No one had promised to come back. No one had said, please, hold on for me. All of it was something I created. I convinced myself, if I waited long enough, if I loved patiently enough, things would eventually turn out all right. But the hearts of others are not like late trains. They don't simply arrive if you wait long enough on the platform. Some people, from the very moment they walk away, They already know they're never coming back. And those who stay behind, we stay only because we care. Because we don't know how to leave. Because we still believe in something called maybe. Outside, the rain kept falling. The droplets clung to the glass unmoving. And I had been clinging too. Stuck in a puddle of old memories. Unable to step out, always telling myself, tomorrow, tomorrow. The sky might clear. That was the first time I felt not hopeless exactly, but emptied. Hope had drained quietly from me, not in tears or loud sorrow, but like rain tapering off after falling too long. Finally, it just stops. I stood up from the chair by the window. For the first time in years, I didn't glance at my phone. I didn't wonder if a message might come today, or tomorrow, or someday soon. I made myself a cup of tea, and I told myself from now on, rainy days will be just rainy days. Not an excuse to wait longer. Not a reason to feel heavier. You know, some realizations arrive late, but they're still worth having. I cannot turn back time and tell my younger self to stop waiting sooner. But having been someone who waited too long, I now understand this truth. No one is worth waiting for forever, except the person you'll become tomorrow. We can wait for others, but in the end, the only person truly worth waiting for is the version of ourselves who grows stronger, quieter, wiser. The one who no longer wastes another rainy day in vain. The rain outside hadn't stopped, but inside me, a small patch of sky had quietly begun to clear. If someone were to ask me when exactly I truly let go, I don't think I could point to a particular rainy day or a lonely night. The truth is, it happened quietly. So quietly, I almost didn't notice. It happened in a moment that slipped by without drama, without tears. And only much later did I realize I wasn't waiting anymore. That morning, I made myself a cup of tea, just as I always did. I sat at my usual spot by the little balcony, watching the plants still wet from last night's rain. The sky was gray, the breeze soft, but inside there was no more longing. Once, it only took a message, a single word, to send my heart racing. Once, seeing a familiar name light up my phone would make the world feel wide open again. But that morning, my phone remained silent, and my heart remained still. I think that is what peace feels like. Not loud, not triumphant, but earned, through tears, through time. A peace you grow into, like an old coat that finally fits. The kind of peace that comes when you no longer ache for answers. When you stop asking why they didn't stay, or why you weren't enough for them to return. Letting go, it doesn't mean you hate them. It doesn't mean you've forgotten. It simply means you understand. Holding on to something that no longer belongs to you is like trying to grasp a handful of rain. No matter how tightly you close your fingers, it will slip through, leaving you wet and shivering in the end. Years ago, I never understood why people said, letting go is a kindness you give yourself. I thought letting go meant giving up, meant losing something precious. But no, letting go is a gift. It gives you permission to live here now, not locked inside a memory, not waiting endlessly on a doorstep that no one is coming back through. That afternoon, I cleaned my little room. I tucked away things I had kept far too long. Old letters never sent. Photos faded with time. Songs I used to play on repeat, hoping they'd hear me somehow. I placed them all in a small box, tied it shut, and stored it somewhere I wouldn't reach for anymore. Maybe you think this sounds silly, that objects cannot hold feelings. But sometimes tidying the outside helps clear the mess within. Later, I took a walk beneath the soft drizzle. No umbrella, no need to rush. I let the raindrops kiss my skin. Let my heart absorb the quiet of it all. And for the first time in so long, I wasn't thinking of anyone, just myself. Just this moment, just the simple relief of knowing I could let go. Letting go feels lighter than I ever imagined. Once, I believed that releasing someone would leave me empty, but now I see, when you truly let go, something else quietly fills the spaces inside you. The warmth of a quiet morning, the peace of rain falling without sorrow, the smile that comes when you remember and it no longer hurts. They may never know how long you waited, but that doesn't matter. What matters is this: you have learned how to come home to yourself. Someday, you'll understand. Not everyone deserves the gift of your waiting, especially not those who already chose to walk away. The one person worth waiting for is you. The you who learns to wake up gently, to sip tea quietly, to enjoy rainy days without sadness. The you who no longer holds out hope for someone who forgot to hold on to you. Outside, the rain was still falling. But in my heart, I think a tiny corner had finally begun to clear. You might be surprised to know, the days when I slowly learned how to live again weren't marked by anything grand. There wasn't some big trip, some new love stepping in to fill the empty spaces. No dramatic turning point that pulled me from the quiet ache I had been carrying. It was simply ordinary days, quiet mornings, gentle afternoons, evenings filled with small, almost invisible moments. I began waking up a little earlier, making myself a cup of warm tea, tidying my desk, placing a small flower in a jar by the window, and then sitting down, breathing deeply, noticing that nothing hurt. It sounds like nothing, but in those days, these tiny things were how I stitched my heart back together. Not through grand gestures, but through gentle, ordinary living. Before, I used to start my mornings scrolling through old messages, old photos, tying myself to memories before the sun had even risen, weighing my heart down with people who had long stopped thinking of me. But one morning, I thought, Why not begin differently? Why not start today with something small, something that's only for me? So I wrote down little things I was grateful for. The quiet of the morning, the warmth of tea between my palms, the soft rain on my window, a song I hadn't listened to in years, now playing without pain. Each day, I added something, not rushing, not forcing, just noticing, just breathing. Today a little better than yesterday, and that was enough. That doesn't mean I no longer had weak moments. Of course I did. There were still nights when the rain pulled me back into old memories. Still moments when my fingers hovered over names. I promised I wouldn't search again. But this time, I didn't punish myself for it. I understood now. The heart takes time. It doesn't heal in a day. It falters, it wavers. But if it keeps standing up, keeps walking, that's what matters. I started doing the little things I had once forgotten in the shadow of waiting. Cooking small meals just for me. Taking quiet walks beneath the trees. Reading the books I had left untouched for too long. Listening, not for someone else's words, but for my own breath. Ordinary days taught me something gentle, but true. Peace isn't something others can give you. It's something you slowly build, with your own hands. One quiet morning at a time. No one can live for you. No one can fill your silences if you haven't learned to sit quietly with them first. It took me longer than I'd like to understand this. But once I did, everything felt softer. I stopped measuring myself against others. Stopped wondering if I was far behind. If I was still broken while they moved on smiling. Because I realized happiness isn't a finish line. It's a path. One you walk slowly, barefoot sometimes. One where every small step counts. One afternoon, I stepped outside into a gentle rain. Not cold, not harsh. Just rain, soft and steady. And for the first time, it didn't make me feel lonely. It made me feel alive. It reminded me. Even the things that once hurt can become beautiful again, if we learn how to see them differently. I grew comfortable being alone. Not because I had no choice, but because I learned to find comfort in my own quiet. I no longer needed someone beside me to feel whole. Because I had finally begun filling myself up with small joys, with gentle gratitude, with slow, steady breaths that didn't rush toward anyone anymore. Someone once asked me, "How do you know when you've truly moved on?" I don't know about others, but for me, it was the day I could smile at an old name without feeling my chest tighten. It was the day I realized no heart can hold onto sadness forever. Not if it truly wants to let it go. We all have our rain to walk through. Some walk faster, some take longer. But eventually, we all find our own sky clearing. At some point, I slowly came to understand something I had once refused to believe. Not everyone who enters our lives is meant to stay. Some people come, simply to teach us how to let go. I used to think if someone truly cared about me, they would never leave. They would try harder, stay longer, hold on through the storms. But life doesn't always work that way. Feelings don't always last together. Some people love us for a while, then grow tired. Some hold our hands tightly once, then quietly let go without a word when we aren't looking. I used to ache over this. I used to believe they were cruel, that I was somehow not enough. But now I feel gratitude. Grateful because through the people who left, I learned to stand on my own. Grateful because every time I was left behind, I discovered something inside me that still wanted to keep going. No one is truly cruel in someone else's story. People simply reach the end of the road they were meant to walk with us. And we are meant to continue walking on our own. I used to ask why people could forget me so easily. But now I understand. Because I wasn't important enough in their hearts to be remembered forever. And that isn't anyone's fault. The heart chooses where it belongs. It doesn't always choose us. So I let go. Not because I am weak. Not because I've lost. But because I've grown strong enough to see. Holding on to someone who no longer wishes to stay only keeps me standing still. I look back on those days with a quiet heart now. The days spent waiting by the window. The nights clutching my phone, hoping for a message. The streets I walked hoping for a chance encounter. All of it feels distant now. Like rain long fallen, unable to be gathered back again. I no longer blame. I no longer wish they would return. Because I finally see, if someone wanted to stay, they would never have left me waiting for so long. Now, I am grateful to those who left me behind. Because they taught me something I could not have learned without them. No one else can make me whole. No one else can hand me my peace. Only I can do that. Only I can learn to love myself gently, again and again. I began to speak to myself more kindly. Little by little, I forgave myself for holding on too long, for hoping too much. I smiled at my reflection, even on days that felt ordinary. And somewhere along the way, the world softened. Happiness began to look different. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't grand confessions. It was a quiet morning with a warm cup of tea. A rainy day that didn't weigh heavy on my chest. A song that reminded me of the past, but didn't hurt anymore. We learn as we grow that some people are here to love. Some are here to leave. Some are simply here to teach us that letting go is its own form of love, the kind we owe to ourselves. And I think I finally understand that now. No more regret. No more waiting. Just quiet gratitude for the people who came, for the people who left, for the lessons they gave me, wrapped gently in rain. Outside, the raindrops slide quietly down the glass. Inside, my heart no longer holds out empty hands. I used to think That to fill the emptiness someone left behind, I needed something big. A grand success. A new love. An adventure to somewhere far away. Something loud enough, bright enough, to drown out the silence they left in me. But over time, I discovered it wasn't the big things that healed me. It was the smallest things. So small, I almost didn't notice them at first. One morning, I sat with a cup of tea by the window. No ache in my chest. No heavy thoughts weighing me down. Just the soft sound of rain tapping gently outside. The faint scent of wet leaves. The warmth of the mug in my hands. For the first time, I simply noticed, and I realized I felt calm. I began paying more attention to things I once overlooked. A patch of sunlight breaking through the clouds. A flower blooming quietly after the rain. The sound of birds against a backdrop of city noise. Small things, quiet things, but they made me feel present, alive, and slowly less empty. I started writing down these moments, tiny things I felt grateful for. A cup of coffee that tasted just right. An afternoon walk where I chose to look up at the sky instead of down at my feet. A day when I didn't think about them at all. These things seemed trivial, but gathered together, they became the gentle threads that wove my heart whole again. One afternoon, I passed a child on the street holding a fallen yellow leaf. They showed it to their mother, delighted as if they'd found treasure. I smiled without meaning to. A soft, genuine smile I hadn't felt in so long. And that's when I understood. The world never runs out of reasons to smile. We only run out of space for them when we hold on too tightly to what's already gone. I gave myself permission to move slowly, to live gently, to stop rushing toward someone else, and instead walk at my own pace toward myself. At night, I no longer clutched my phone, waiting for a message that would never come. I listened to soft music, read a few pages of a book, wrote down my quiet thoughts. Some nights I still wrote. I miss them. But more often now I wrote-y. I'm okay. That's what healing looks like. Not sudden, not loud, just a slow unfolding, a quiet becoming. I realized not everyone walks beside you forever, but you will always walk with yourself. So why not be gentle? Why not be kind? Some days I sat alone and listened to the rain, not because I was lonely, but because I had learned to enjoy the sound of my own quiet company. The spaces they left behind, I filled with simple joys, little kindnesses, moments of gratitude, steady breaths that no longer chased after anyone's shadow. Someone once asked me, "How do you know you're really over them?" I didn't have a perfect answer, but maybe it's when you can say their name without feeling your heart grow heavy. Maybe it's when you realize no heart stays broken forever. If you're truly ready to let the pieces rest. We all have our own rain to walk through. Some of us move quickly. Some take longer. But eventually, We all find our way to clearer skies. Peace, it turns out, isn't something far away. It doesn't come from someone bringing it to you. It doesn't come from promises, from love returned, or from shoulders to lean on when the nights get too long. Peace comes quietly from within. The moment you realize you already have enough. I discovered this on an afternoon just like any other. No storms, no heartbreak, no dramatic endings. Just soft clouds drifting by, sunlight filtering gently onto rooftops. I sat by the window with a cup of tea still warm in my hands. Music hummed softly in the background, and somehow, I noticed I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't waiting for anyone to call. I wasn't waiting for anyone to come back. I wasn't asking the same old questions over and over again in my mind. Where are they now? Do they still think of me? Will tomorrow bring something I've been hoping for? All of it had grown quiet. The noise inside me had settled. And in that stillness, I realized I had finally found peace. Not everyone gets there the same way. Some fight for it. Some chase after it. But sometimes, peace arrives only when we finally stop running, when we stop grasping, when we learn to sit with ourselves exactly as we are. My peace looked like this: slow mornings without hurry. Afternoons spent beneath trees, breathing in the scent of wet earth. Evenings with soft rain against my window, no longer making me ache. Just gentle rhythms, small, steady days without longing. I stopped feeling the need to fill my life with people. Stopped searching for someone to mend the spaces in me. Because I had learned those spaces weren't empty anymore. They were being filled, quietly, with little joys. With the kind of calm that only comes when you've walked through the storm on your own and survived. Maybe this is what growing up feels like. Realizing you no longer need to clutch at every fleeting thing. Understanding not everyone stays, and that's all right. Understanding that your own steps, your own breath, are enough to keep you moving forward. I looked back on those old days without bitterness. There were hard days. There were nights of silent tears, but all of them led me here, to this quiet place inside, where nothing feels urgent anymore. No more waiting. No more hoping someone might return. No more giving my heart away to things that never belonged to me. Now I can make myself happy. Now I can heal my own hurts. Now I remind myself, again and again, no matter who leaves, I will always have myself, and that is enough. Some afternoons, I sit alone, listening to the sound of leaves rustling softly. Not lonely, not empty, just still. And in that stillness, I recognize peace is not the absence of pain. It's the quiet acceptance of what was and what is. It's knowing the rain will come, and it will pass. That hearts break, and they heal. That letting go is not loss, but freedom. I no longer fear the nights ahead. I no longer fear the silence, because now I know how to sit within it and smile. Outside, the rain slows to a gentle hush. Inside, my heart has already cleared. At last, I understand what peace really means. I used to be someone who lived in quiet waiting. Waiting for someone to return. Waiting for an explanation. Waiting for a message, a promise, a sign that never came. I thought my life would always circle around those days. Long, silent days filled with questions and hopes wrapped around someone who had long stopped thinking of me. But then one morning, I realized I no longer waited for anyone. I only waited for myself, the version of me I was still becoming, a softer me, a steadier me, a me who no longer winced at the echoes of yesterday. They say, when you stop waiting for others, your heart expands in quiet, unexpected ways, and it's true. When I stopped searching for familiar footsteps on old streets, when I stopped hoping for someone to understand the words I couldn't say aloud, the world seemed to open in gentle new ways. Each day became a blank page again, no longer stained with what ifs or maybes. Just simple, clean mornings, soft, slow afternoons, nights that no longer held me hostage to memories. I began making promises to myself instead, promising to brew a warm cup of tea in the morning, promising to take quiet walks beneath kind trees, promising to write down the small, good things, even if no one else would ever read them. And when I kept these promises, I smiled. Not because anyone noticed, but because I did. Because I was learning, I could live for myself. I once believed happiness came from someone holding my hand, walking with me through storms and sun. But now, I understand. Happiness comes from the steps I take alone, from the moments I choose myself, from rising again and again, even when no one cheers me on. Some things only you can give to yourself. Some spaces only you can fill with kindness and patience. I no longer hope someone will come back. I no longer wonder if they think of me. Those who leave are meant to keep walking forward. And I am meant to keep walking too. But now, I walk toward something else, toward tomorrow, toward the quiet joy of knowing each day I can become a little lighter, a little softer, a little more at peace than I was yesterday. Some evenings, I sit beneath soft rain, feeling no sadness at all, just a gentle kind of gratitude. Rain will always come, people will always leave, but I will always remain with myself, for myself. I no longer need someone to tell me I matter. I no longer need someone to remind me I am worthy. I have learned how to hold my own hand, how to speak gently to the mirror, how to smile simply because I woke up again. The days ahead are uncertain. I don't know what they'll bring, but I know this: I will wait for them. Not with fear, not with longing, but with soft hope for myself. No longer waiting for anyone else, just waiting for the person I'm still becoming. Thank you for staying until the very end of tonight's story. A story about waiting for someone and realizing that one day you simply won't have to wait anymore. Perhaps you once thought you could never let go of that feeling, but here you are, listening quietly, letting these soft words settle around you like rain. And I believe you've touched something precious within yourself tonight. Peace. The peace of someone who no longer waits for promises, no longer holds onto footsteps fading into the distance. The peace of someone who's learning to live slowly, softly, just for themselves. Outside, the rain is fading now. The piano grows quieter, and all that's left is your steady breath, easing gently into sleep. Rest well. Those old days have already passed, and tomorrow will feel a little lighter. Woo, but if somewhere in your heart there's still a promise left behind, a promise someone once whispered, I'll stay, I won't leave, and yet they still walked away. Have you ever wondered, is it really the person we hold on to? Or is it the promisee that keeps us waiting long after we should have let go? If you've ever asked yourself that question, then the next story I'll share is meant for you. To the one who promised they'd stay. Another night, another story, but still just as gentle, just as soft. I'll be waiting for you there. Whenever your heart feels ready to listen once again.